Excuse me, mic on. Call this meeting to order. Thank you all for coming. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, for the record, staff is present. Councilman Cornegie, here she is here. Councilman Judith Dunley is ill tonight, and I would entertain a motion to excuse her absence.
I make a motion to excuse Councilmember Judith Dunley due to illness.
I second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So she's excused. Okay, Council, you know the drill. I have items A through G on the consent calendar this evening. Let me know your pleasure.
Mayor, I move that we approve items A through G.
Second.
Okay, it's been motioned by Councilman Cornegie and seconded by Councilman Lemley to approve items A through G on the consent calendar. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously. Okay, now is the public comment period. See a lot of the same folks. Thank you for coming. I will remind you that to state your name and address clearly for the record taker, please. Remember, you're addressing the council, so direct your comments to them, not to each other. This is not a time to engage in argument or cross-examination. Please be respectful of each other and stick to the 3-minute time so everyone has a chance to speak. You get one time at the podium. Anyone, any takers? Step right up.
I was a little bit lengthy here, so I wrote it down. My name is Helge. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the City Council Directors. My name is Helge Anderson, and I live at 928 Beachley Road, and I've been living there for 26 years now. I read with some interest and great surprise that there is a flyer apparently circulating in Sedro-Woolley that has been named the Anderson Family Flyer by your city supervisor and attorney, Mr. Berg. Mr. Berg apparently speculated that this flyer originated with my family, and he is incorrect in that assumption. I take exception to his speculation. I would like to state for the record that not one of my family members had anything to do with the origination of either of the flyers that have appeared in Sedro-Woolley relating to the mayor's library proposal. While we are active individuals and are happy to disseminate information to our neighbors and fellow residents of Sedro-Woolley, it is calumny, I guess that's how you pronounce it, from Mr. Berg to classify, label, or otherwise identify my family name with any of the flyers circulating as coming from or originating with the Anderson family. I wish this correction to go on record and Mr. Berg to stop identifying my family with either of these documents. I would entertain an apology, but I don't expect one. In the meantime, I was glad to see that Representative Kirk Pearson is sponsoring on behalf of our mayor an effort to upgrade our Sedro-Woolley City Library, irrespectively of whether or not we collaborate with the Central Skagit District Library. I believe this move is progress, and I applaud the City Council's support of our City Library as an ongoing city service worthy of financial support. I would also like to express surprise that our own city library's remarkable efforts on behalf of children every summer was not recognized on the city's website. I understand that nearly 1,000 children participated in the summer reading programs last summer, and many photos of them were taken and posted on the library's website. Why were not these photos included on the city's website, since the city took the trouble to show the Central Skagit Library's significantly smaller efforts? I will say again that I do not support the mayor's proposal to give away our city library to the Central Skagit Library. I think the Central Skagit Library should contract for an agreed upon amount with our city library for immediate services to their constituents. And if they wish to build themselves a library in Big Lake, they should do so with their own and not our money. Thank you for listening, and I hope they're paying attention. Thank you.
Right on time.
May I ask one question? Are you talking about the pictures on this? What are you referring to as in pictures?
Brett, we've had this discussion.
Okay, I'll ask you afterwards.
This is public comment time.
I
It's
just
time for the
wanted to
public,
clarify what he was
not us.
Thank you for that.
Anyone else for the podium? Step right up, Mr. O'Neill.
Dennis O'Neill, I reside at 109 Talcott Street, and I'm going to jump back and forth on this paperwork here, but I don't know, it doesn't really say 3 minutes on it. Got a couple things to mention here. You know, one of the writers in the paper wrote that it was just real applicable to what you just said. The mayor of Sedro-Woolley has only offered public comment at the city council meetings. During this time, you're not allowed to ask elected officials about their decision process, tax implication, or provide an exchange of ideas. And I think that's pretty relevant to everything that's going on right now. There's not much transparency in what's been happening. I know, Mayor, you mentioned here on the February 5th, one of the comments from other people that this thing's going way too fast, and you're saying in almost 3 years we went from nowhere to somewhere, or nowhere to nowhere. In the past 2 months we went from nowhere to having a preliminary proposal. Well, all of this comes at a real big surprise to most of the people in Sedro-Woolley, because we didn't know anything was going on the last 3 years, and all of a sudden there's a proposal by the mayor on January 21st, 3 weeks after taking office. There wasn't much mention, if anything, during the election process. I still would have voted for Keith, but I would have liked to have known what was going on. A lot of the things that he mentioned in his letter, library partnership concept, are incorrect. I can always talk about them later, but most of the things I find issues with, like retaining the employees at the Sedro-Woolley Library. As soon as you get performance evaluation, if it's negative at all, you really don't get a chance to defend yourself. And the second one is you're gone a lot of times. And I don't think there's anything here that's going to protect any city employees over here. Because the way it was first written, there wasn't going to be a lot of advisory influence by the city to the district. And there's no appeal process. We'll be out of it. So nobody's going to protect any employees over there. Maybe things have changed. I know you had a negotiation deal going on Monday, and I don't know what the result of that was. So a lot of this that I'm looking at maybe all changed now. But, you know, I find it interesting that we can find money for roundabouts and 3 additional police officers, which I think we did need, but we also need a library. We got a spray park going on, so we're going to be expensive. And I guess we just bought 3 new lawn tractors at $10,000 a piece. I didn't know about, but I do now. I'm just thinking that, you know...
You need to wrap it up, Dennis.
Okay, thanks. Public trust is something you got to earn. You can't just expect. And I don't think the communication from the council members or the mayor was very good. I have a lot of respect for all of you, but I'm sort of disappointed that people aren't standing up and saying what they believe in. You're all going as a unit. And that reminds me an awful lot of Deluxe. And Rick was here, and Aaron was here. And I've got all the paperwork on that still. And, you know, it's following the same sort of line. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next? Yes, sir.
Gary Booty, 1035 Clifford Street. Apparently, all of of the numbers that are being put out there don't seem to be very helpful to be able to convince you that this is a bad idea. So maybe I can put it in a different way that you might be able to figure it out. Why don't you buy a car? But instead of you keeping the car, you give it to me. Let me be the one that takes care of it. Actually, not takes care of it, gets to use it. You're going to make all the payments on that car, just like you're talking about for the library system here. And you'll also pay for the upkeep of that car. Good idea, huh? Then once in a while, I might let you use that car. That'd be nice of me, wouldn't it? If I feel like I want to. But it's strictly going to be my choice as to when you're going to get to use that car. You're still going to make all the payments and take care of the upkeep of the car. And once the car's all paid for, hey, what's going to happen to it then? Well, why not just let me keep the car? And you can still maintain it, but we'll call it your car, but you're not going to use it at all because it's mine to play with as I want, and you can maintain it. And since you don't have to make any more payments on that car, why don't you just go ahead, since you don't need that money anyway, because you obviously gave the car away in the first place, why don't you just let me keep the money and you can still maintain the car. That makes about as much sense as what you're planning on for this library. It doesn't pan out. Why in the world would we want to give away a fantastic library system and not have any choice or any support from the group to be able to do any work with it itself? We're just giving the whole thing away and paying for it. Hopefully that'll make more sense to you than a bunch of numbers do, because apparently numbers don't seem to mean much to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Sedro-Woolley. I've been here about 15 years, and I honestly support that library. It has been great. It's a real place to take your family. The kids have a robotic thing there, the teenagers and stuff, where they did robotics in the library. They have things for the little kids. They have story time. They have everything. And I just support the fact that I want to keep my money here in town. I don't want to give my money to a library that's going to be given to somebody else. I want it here. I may be 80 years old, but I like my library, and I want to be able to use it. And I don't want to have to drive all over town to do it, and I don't want to be way out in some other piece of town. I want it right here in Sedro-Woolley, where I can get to it. And there's a lot of other people in my age who would like to have the same thing. Please keep it here.
Thank you.
My name is Melissa Macumber, and I live at 417 Spring Lane, Sedro-Woolley. I am a strong library supporter. I love libraries. I love what they do for democracy. And I think I just want to continue to encourage you guys to continue these negotiations and looking at this partnership. I liked Brett's analogy of a marriage. This isn't us giving something away. This is two different parties with both who have something to offer, sharing it with the entire Sedro-Woolley School District. It's sad to me that Skagit County is one of the few counties without a countywide system, and by doing this partnership and cooperating, we set the stage to continue that throughout our county so that we can catch up with the other counties in our state. So I just want to encourage you to keep looking at this.
Thank you. Anybody else? At this time, I will close. Oh, I'm sorry, Rita.
Rita Stevenson, 909 Alderwood Lane. As a longtime city resident, I care about the city and the reputation of its government. When I heard about the mayor's library proposal and the lack of transparency on the issue, I was very upset. This is no way to treat our citizens of the city who deserve input to any major city decision, such as giving away our city library and using residents' money to pay for a building for someone else. As a former employee, I'm aware of budget restrictions. However, I have watched for years as our library was always the last department to be funded and therefore always underfunded. They have done an excellent job with the funds that they do receive. The citizens, old and young, appreciate our library and the staff there. And if you care about our citizens and our children, you'll work on remodeling our city of Sedro-Woolley Library and keep it as a city service as it is now. Thank you.
Thank you. So we had some latecomers. We're in public comment period. If you care to speak, you may approach the podium. Okay. Seeing no takers, public comment period is closed. And we'll move on to unfinished business. Item 5, proposed adoption of updates to the Shoreline Master Program, second reading, and I believe this is John. That's page 76 to 226.
Much to say. We discussed this at the first read. If council has any further questions, I'm happy to go over them, or if council would like me to give a recap, I can do so.
Any questions from the council?
I guess a recap would be nice.
Okay. So the Planning Commission spent several years working on updates to the Shoreline Management Program, which is a set of rules that establishes goals and policies for our shoreline areas, as well as specific development regulations for areas in the shoreline. The city of Sedro-Woolley has one significant shoreline that is along the Skagit River. So it's mostly riverfront park, and 200 feet landward from the floodway, which brings the edge of the shoreline jurisdiction up to what I call the bench below Dunlop Street, the rise to the rest of town where there's actually development. The shoreline jurisdiction doesn't come up into the areas where there's any development in Sedro-Woolley. We've managed to either not build in the shoreline jurisdiction, or the river has taken away anything that has been built in that area in the past. So it's mostly the park property and maybe a couple of wetlands, but not wetland buffers, that are adjacent to the floodplain. So that would be the jurisdiction. This document would put in place goals and policies as required by the Department of Ecology under the Shoreline Management Act to create a shoreline management master program. And it would also specify, as I said, development regulations for development in the floodplain.
Thank you, John. Any other questions? So the requested action is on page 77. The next ordinance number is 1847, Tax 16.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 1847, TAC 16, an ordinance of the City of Sedro-Woolley, amending the Sedro-Woolley Municipal Code, a comprehensive plan for the purpose of adopting an updated shoreline master program.
I second it.
Okay, it's been motioned by Councilman Lumley, seconded by Councilman Johnson, to approve an ordinance, ordinance number 1847, Tax 16, adopting the Sedro-Woolley Shoreline Management Plan. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And it passes. Thank you, John. Next up, new business, also, John, page 227 to 456, 2015 Comprehensive Plan Docket Amendments. This is a first reading. No action tonight.
So I'll give everybody a chance to scroll down to page 227 so we can go over this page by page.
Oh, you're killing us.
Suffice it to say, the Planning Commission reviewed this document thoroughly. I think we had 6 public hearings, 6 regular Planning Commission meetings, 2 open houses. The council has already, at one point, passed a resolution supporting the UGA boundaries, which are all part of this, so that those UGA boundaries could then be taken to the county for their review, because the county sets the UGA boundaries. So there's been a lot of thorough review on this already. What we're looking at today is a request to adopt amendments to the comprehensive plan, adopt proposed amendments to the development regulations that are necessary to make sure that the comprehensive plan and the development regulations are fit hand in hand. They comply with each other. And make amendments to the zoning map. So I'll start with the easy one first. The zoning map, there's one zoning change on it. That's seen in the third ordinance, a rezone of 121-acre property from mixed commercial, from R7 to mixed commercial. And the council's already reviewed that, passed it in theory, passed a motion supporting it in theory, not approving anything, back in February. The amendments to the comprehensive plan include, and they're outlined in the memo, an updated introduction and vision statement to the comprehensive plan, updates to the land use element, which include the updated population and employment forecasts, the updated urban growth area boundaries based on those forecasted population and employment numbers, and including a new R1 zone, creating possibility for a R1 environmentally constrained zone around the Bottomless Lake area, should that become part of the urban growth area. The updates to the comp plan also include updates to the transportation element. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on that last month, and that was the final key and the final piece of this update process. That the Planning Commission reviewed to bring it all together after they've already reviewed the land use element, the vision statement, the urban growth area boundaries, and as well, they also had a public hearing on updates to the economic development element. Like I said, so those would be the amendments to the comprehensive plan. The amendments to the development regulations include updates to the critical areas ordinance as reviewed by several state jurisdictions and been held open for a couple months of public comment. And then updates to Chapter 17, creating a new Chapter 17 for the Residential 1 environmentally sensitive, environmentally constrained zoning designation. And then updates to the zoning map as well as would be the third ordinance. You got all that? Or should I slow down a little? I know this is a lot of information. I did my best to organize it in an understandable methodology in the ordinances. Like I said, there's 3 ordinances. One of them has, I think, A through E appendixes or exhibits to it, and some of those may have exhibits to those. So it's a little bit complex. That's why we have 2 reads on these things, I suppose.
Yeah, so we certainly have our reading cut out for us. I do appreciate the fact that the old language is still there in strikeout, so we can compare, and it's pretty easy to identify where the changes are. So
I would like to point out, while you make that point, the transportation element is completely new. So it was revised to the point where we didn't do strike-throughs, we just rewrote it.
Very good. Anybody have anything else for John? Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Item 7 looks like it's late material on in front of you, Council. It is contract award, possible contract award, Skagit Surveyors for constructing and surveying for the Jameson project. Is that you, Mark?
That's me. Thank you, Mayor. So my intention was to bring this to you as a regular council item. In the process of negotiating this agreement with Skagit Surveyors for the construction surveying on the Jameson project, we ran into a couple of snags. The main one was that this work falls under the prevailing wage law requirements from the Department of Labor and Industries. We were not aware of that until relatively late in the negotiation process, and it required us to go back to Skagit and had them revise their estimate. It added roughly 30% to the cost of the surveying work. So they did that. We negotiated the contract and settled on this amount, and that's what's coming to you tonight. It created a bit of a budget problem for me, which I describe in the analysis section. But the funds that we've previously allocated for the project are sufficient to cover the work without any undue hardship. I mentioned in the last sentence of the analysis section that a budget amendment is not required. However, as I reviewed the ordinance tonight, which set the budget, construction phase budget for the Jameson project, I didn't include local funds in that because at the time it appeared that our grant fund package and our wages that we have in it would fully cover that. The mayor and I have talked about that. It was a kind of a bit of a good development on that project with the way it all worked out. We had originally allocated $55,000 in local funds. Our actual costs are going to be significantly less than that. So now I've got to spend some of what I didn't think I was going to have to, and I will have to do a budget amendment next go around to add in those local funds, which will be from either the GMA impact fee or the transportation benefit or 104 funds available for this purpose. So that'll come back to you later. But the bottom line is this is work that we have to do. In fact, as I mentioned to you last time, we had our pre-construction conference today, and we included Skagit Surveyors in that based on your acquiescence that we needed to move forward with that. And tonight, I would recommend that we move to award the contract to Skagit Surveyors for the construction phase surveying work for the project.
Thank you, Mark. So, Council, you have the materials in front of you, the suggested motion at the bottom of the page.
I move to authorize Mayor Wagner to execute the attached professional services agreement number 2016-PS-21 with Skagit Surveyors and Engineers of Sedro-Woolley, Washington, to provide engineering support services for the construction phase for the Jameson Arterial Extension to SR9 project in the amount of $85,238.
Second.
Okay, Motion was made by Councilman Cornegay and seconded by Councilman Sandstrom, and I guess I'll just read that thing too. You did good. Move to authorize Mayor Wagner to execute the attached professional services agreement number 2016 tax PS TAC 21 with Skagit Surveyors and Engineers of Sedro-Woolley, Washington to provide engineering support services for the construction phase of the Jamison Arterial Extension to State Route 9 project in the amount of $85,238. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And it carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Item 8, Teserick Field advertising. That's page 457 through 460 in your packets. This is huge. So I guess I can talk to this one. You know, Rotary has pretty much completed the field out there, and as part of that, we have partnered with the Little League. Little League does fundraising by putting up signs from donors, similar to the old Teserick Field. Now, this is kind of a sea change for us because we've never had advertising in a city park, which this is now. So I discussed that with Rotary, I discussed it with the Little League, and I think that we've came to what I believe is a fair compromise. I would like to allow them to put their signs up so it has a ball field type feel to it, but only during the season and only in black and white so we can kind of maintain the dignity and the classic look of the field. So that's what this is about. It's up to you whether we do that, but that's my pitch.
Will be uniform to a standard size? All of them will be the same size?
Yes, uniform size, uniform
black and white
color, and up during the season, the Little League season proper only.
And what are the sign parameters going to be?
I think there's some examples in there.
Mm-hmm.
Did we put
3x5, 3x6?
It looks like
I think they're primarily 4x8s.
They cover the panel of the
Full
fence.
sheet, plywood sheet?
And there's some examples there. You know, there's, I suppose they have them in color and they have them in black and white, just to my taste, and because it's a memorial field and it's done so elegantly, I think if we limit it to black and white, it kind of preserves the classic look, in my opinion. Or you can choose not to allow them at all. Did I miss anything, Aaron? I think you were in one of those meetings.
Well, what I was wondering is, what would be the benefit, like, you know, cost-wise? Like how much would they make from the advertising? And
oh, I think Little League gets, and don't quote me on the number, but I think it's about $600 per advertiser, so it's very significant to their program.
And they would be responsible for removing and placing them each season, and that, or would that be a city?
No, that's up to the Little League. They're going to have an equipment shed, and I think that will be an appropriate place to put them, but if they choose to.
Well, I'm in favor of the signs, and I personally don't mind the color signs. It's a little more reflective of the baseball theme than that, but
wouldn't be a baseball field if it didn't have signs.
So there's a recommended motion on page 457, and
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to authorize limited advertisement at Teserick Field using a black and white only design theme and only during the Little League season.
Okay, motion was made by Councilman Sandstrom, seconded by Councilman Owen. to authorize limited advertising at Tesrick Field using a black and white design theme only and only during the Little League season. Any other discussion?
I spoke with somebody from the Little League, and this having the signs helps them pay for their season, so they generally couldn't do it without that advertisement dollar.
Anybody else?
I think it's worth a try, the black and white, see how well it works, and if it turns out it's not that effective, then...
Always next year.
Yeah, there's always next year. Yeah.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Committee reports. Chief Tucker.
So just a couple things here. We've had a lot of people in training this last week. You may have seen some of our vehicles heading over to the airport. We've got EVOC training going on right now. So they're out tearing up tires and brakes, but for the most part coming back in one piece. We have got two of our newest officers. One we stole from Whatcom County and one we stole from Burlington. They're off at field training officer training this week. So they'll be helping train our new reserves that we've got. And Officer Cates just finished his defensive tactics master instructor update down at the academy. He's one of the few around here that are master instructors. Pretty impressive credential. Some of you may have seen our Facebook page. We're doing some frequently asked questions. We're trying to just come up with those questions that we get asked all the time. We're putting them out on our Facebook page. Detective Paul Eaton is kind of managing our Facebook and fielding all those questions and kind of putting them in a format that fits the Facebook page and the information we want to get out. We're getting some pretty favorable responses from our posts. And a lot of people may have heard about the protests that are coming up this coming weekend. We don't have anybody that's going to be over there. One of my detectives is going to be on standby with the negotiation team that he's part of with the Mount Vernon Police Department. And Sergeant McElraith is going to be on standby with the SWAT team that he's part of with the Sheriff's Office. They aren't anticipating needing either one of them, but they're basically just been put on hold and, keep close to a phone. We've got some extended coverage over the weekend, as if it gets really big over there. We're going to be fielding calls or helping the county in Central County East and backing them on calls and helping out with coverage in that manner. They will have a sergeant on board, and then we'll request our assistance if they need. So if you see one of our cars racing upriver, that's probably why they're going up to help the sheriff's office sometime over the weekend. I'm going to be over there, right across there, with the Bayview Women's Run on Saturday morning doing security for that. The sheriff's office doesn't have anybody, so if you hear me standing in the road on Bayview, Edison Road, that's why. Saturday morning I'd rather be at home. But it's for a really good cause, so we'll be over there and watching my wife and daughter walk. And the next city council meeting, I'm going to be away. Sergeant Harris is going to be sitting in for me again. I'll be at WASPIC, and that's the Chiefs and Sheriffs Association. And that's where I get my updated training to find out what's going on in the rest of the state and get updated on my training hours that I require for the year. And one last thing, I don't know if any of you heard about it. There was a report of some people with a gun outside the bank, the Skagit Bank downtown, right in the core of downtown. It was three, I honestly don't know how to classify them other than idiots, playing with a BB gun. And you'd think these are, children, well, they're 23, 24, 25-year-old children who'd been drinking and set up a target in the trees there behind the old Bank of America building and thought this would be a really good idea. And it wasn't. And one of the officers said, I thought he was aiming a gun at Officer Wilson as she drove past. And it could have been serious, but he yelled out to him. And then all at once, I think some of the stupid ran out of him, and a little bit of reason kicked in, and they just said, "It's just a BB gun, sorry." But one thing I think they learned out of this is if you've been drinking, you're in the center of town, you're outside a bank, you have a realistic firearm, the police are called, and you all have warrants for your arrest, you probably shouldn't call attention to yourself.
Yeah, that last one's a kicker.
Yeah. And that's all I have.
I wanted to thank your ordinance control officer. I was away in Yakima for a seminar, came back. The large moving van with the broken window that was parked on city right-of-way was gone. And thanks to her, and also thanks to the citizen who, it took a little while, but they cooperated. They knew they were right or they were wrong, and they took care of it. So I appreciate that process that goes on. I know there's lots more out there, but that one was a particularly annoying one since I had to see it every day.
I'll let Lauren know. Thank you.
Thanks. Chief Klinger.
We've completed the hazmat and the police vehicle storage up at Station 2. Nathan's going to do the final touches with the asphalt tomorrow sometime. That is, hopefully it doesn't rain, he said, weather permitting. And I don't know if you saw the paper, we spent 8 hours over Mount Vernon the other day with our ladder truck, so we got a good use out of it. And the week before we were over Clear Lake at their fire. And you might see it running up and down the road a little more often than normal. We're still working it out with Burlington, but they have us on their automatic call-outs for all their fires since they broke theirs during the fire. So we're trying to work that out. We were just toned out a few minutes ago for a tree fire. I'm not sure what 2 ladder trucks, one from Woolley, one from Mount Vernon, is going to do for a tree, but we'll get that straightened out. So that's it.
Thank you. It's always good to look good with the neighbors over there and help out. Thanks. John?
Well, as I mentioned, council previously lent their support to the city's proposed urban growth area expansion. That expansion has gone to the county, and in April they had their public hearing on it in front of the Planning Commission, a meeting which I attended. And the planning commissioners had follow-up questions. So last night had a follow-up deliberation for their comprehensive plan update process. So it was for lots of items besides just map amendments and besides just Sedro-Woolley's urban growth area request. I was there to answer questions for them. Spoke and presented information and maps to them for about a half an hour. It's available on the website, of course, or not their website, but on Channel 10 if you feel like watching. I'm sure it's riveting. But you can see the kind of questions that the Planning Commission that the County Planning Commission had for me. It was they seem to be a little unsure of what's going on. It's a complex issue, and so I've been trying to help them get through the process. County staff has not been, they haven't been a problem, but I don't feel like they're giving a whole lot of support through this process, so we're kind of going at it alone. There will be continuing deliberations on next Tuesday, so I will be attending the County Planning Commission meeting again on next Tuesday in case they have any further clarification questions for me. The public hearings are over, so no new information is really supposed to be provided, but I'll be there to answer any questions they have on the large packet of information that was provided to them. And since I will be at the County Planning Commission next Tuesday evening, will not be able to be at the Sedro-Woolley Planning Commission meeting, so I will be canceling the Sedro-Woolley Planning Commission for this month.
Okay. Thank you, John. Mark?
We had the pre-construction conference for the Jameson project this morning, and the contractor is set to mobilize beginning next Monday. They'll actually start work on Wednesday when our stormwater permit is active. And moving forward, forward. They'll be doing it according to our basic staging plan that we have in that, which involves putting a what I'll call a shoe fly, basically putting some added lanes to the right of where the roundabout will be to the east side of that, so that we can move all the traffic out of the area where the new roundabout circle's going in and build that under what we're calling stage 2. So that work will be starting. Most of the activity of any significance will start on the 23rd. I will say that DOT is really key in this. They have to install some new speed limit signs under the approved speed zone change that you're aware of from the ordinance you passed a few weeks ago. They haven't done that yet, and they need to have that in place for me to get my traffic control in place, so I'm trying to move them along on that, and sometimes that's a little bit tricky to get that organization to move in what we think might be a reasonable manner. But we're moving ahead with the assumption that it's going to go according to that schedule, and we're all in place to do that. We've got a good contractor and a good construction manager in Bob Pearce, and so we're looking forward to getting going on that. Thank you for approving the last contract tonight for the surveyors. That'll make that all work. Also, we have a pre-construction conference next week for the Ferry Street overlay project. That work is contracted with Colacruccio, which you approved at the last council meeting, and that'll start about the 1st of June and be done by Lago Rodeo. David's also designing the shared use path on Highway 20 from Highway 9 to Hodgin Road, and we're hoping to have that out to bid late May, early June, and build that later this summer and fall. Other than that, there's just plenty of the usual activities and public works going on. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Aaron? That's different.
I don't have anything out of the ordinary to report this evening.
Okay, Jermaine.
I didn't really have anything until just a second ago. Thought about this coming Sunday at the Farmhouse or Farmstrong Brewery. Our Leadership Skagit team, Blue Diamonds, is doing like a celebration, a Raise the Roof celebration, we call it. We did a project for growing veterans, and we're going to be finally done this coming Saturday, and we're just inviting people out for a raffle prize and celebration. 6 to 9 o'clock.
Brenda?
I just want to remind the public that in June 3rd, 4th, and 5th is the Blast from the Past. So come out for that.
Chuck?
Yes. I'd like to ask the chief about the motorhome on Township Street. There's got to be some kind of story behind that thing, because it just showed up out of the blue. I never seen anybody around it.
From what we understand, we didn't get a straight story on it either, but the guy who is registered to his current address is the King County Jail, and he wasn't talking to us about it. When we called down to talk to him in the jail, he referred us to his legal counsel. I'm not sure if it was a lawyer or a really good friend who lives in Concrete. And apparently, the motorhome was headed to Concrete and couldn't make it. And they probably stopped for ice cream or pulled off on the widest road and left it there, and then nobody's responsible for it. We've had trouble getting motorhomes towed. Tow yards don't want them. They actually can't do anything with them. But we've been working out a pretty good deal with a couple of local tow companies to help us out, and we tow them to a city yard for storage until we figure out exactly what to do with them. That one was a little bit different than normal. It was a little bit better shaped than most of the ones that we see that have like ferns growing out of them and critters in them and people coming out of the, all the little cubbies in there. But that was pretty much all we figured, unless we were getting, a stupid story. And it wasn't a very good one anyway, so.
Thank you.
Rick?
Julia stole my thunder, but yes, Blast from the Past is coming up. 3 weeks will be here before you know it. Motorcycle show on Saturday, car show on Sunday. beer garden at Vic 66 during the shows.
Yeah.
So be on alert, Chief. And the quilt show that will be
I was
at
gonna ask him.
Skagit River Restaurant. Unfortunately, Thompson's will not be here this year. There's a family conflict with a wedding. So we have someone new coming to fill their spot right here on Ferry Street for them, but it'll still be a good show. A lot of kids' activities in the square, and music and food, and a lot of yeehaw. So come join us.
Not too far from now is Lager Rodeo, but Lager Rodeo is currently seeking volunteers and future board members. So if any of you know any great folks that are interested, have them contact Jeannie, our Lager Rodeo president.
Okay, for me, I just want to remind everybody, anyone who's ever made an appointment with me and I didn't say, yeah, come on down, raise your hand. So that's right. I accept, as I have from day one, if anybody wants to come and talk, because I heard some complaints tonight about there's, no give and take. That's just the way this body works. But I'm always willing to meet with any one of you. And usually you can just walk in, but I prefer an appointment. It keeps things a little cleaner. So I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Did you have something, Chuck, before?
You did? He's not going to. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn. This is closed. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.